Jack Morrison stepped out of the shuttle and felt the strange air of the Zephyrin homeworld hit his face. It was cool and thick, nothing like Earth. The sky above was a pale purple, and the light came from two suns that hung in different parts of the sky. He took a deep breath and looked at the palace in front of him. The Zephyrin Palace was not built like anything Jack had ever seen. It rose from the ground like a giant crystal, with sharp edges and smooth surfaces that reflected the purple light. The walls seemed to glow from inside, as if light came from the stone itself. Guards stood at every entrance, tall and angular beings with skin that looked like polished metal. They did not move as Jack approached, but their eyes followed him. Jack wore his formal diplomatic uniform, a dark blue suit that meant respect and peace. He carried no weapons. The Zephyrins had made it very clear that weapons were not welcome in their halls. Jack did not mind. He had learned long ago that the best weapons were words and understanding. A Zephyrin official named Kes approached him. Kes was tall, nearly 7 feet, with 4 arms and skin that shifted between silver and gray. He spoke in a voice that sounded like wind through metal. "Jack Morrison of Earth, you are early," Kes said. "I wanted to arrive with time to prepare," Jack replied. "I want this meeting to be successful." Kes's eyes narrowed. The Zephyrin Empire does not depend on the readiness of humans. We are ready whenever we choose to be ready. You will follow protocol. Jack nodded without arguing. He had read the reports. The Zephyrins believed themselves to be the greatest power in this part of the galaxy. They had technology far beyond what humans could build. They had conquered 3 other species and made them serve the Empire. Humanity was new to space, still learning, still building. To the Zephyrins, humans were like children playing with toys they did not understand. Kes led Jack through the palace halls. The walls seemed to shift colors as they walked, going from silver to blue to green. The floors were smooth and cold beneath Jack's feet. Zephyrin guards watched from every corner. Jack counted at least 30 weapons pointed at him in the first 5 minutes. He kept his hands visible and his expression calm. They reached a great hall where the Zephyrin nobility had gathered. Jack saw hundreds of them, all tall, all powerful looking, all watching him with expressions that ranged from curiosity to contempt. At the far end of the hall, seated on a raised platform, was Princess Agla. She was beautiful in a way that was sharp and cutting, like a blade. Her skin was deep silver, and patterns of blue light moved across her arms. Her eyes were large and dark, and they looked at Jack with no kindness. She wore robes that seemed to be made of woven light itself. Around her was a circle of guards, the most loyal and dangerous in the Empire. "Jack Morrison," she said, her voice loud and clear. "You come from the small world called Earth." "I do, Your Highness," Jack replied, bowing slightly. "I come to speak of peace between our peoples." The hall filled with laughter. It was not kind laughter. It was the laughter of those who found something amusing and beneath them. "Peace," Arla repeated. "You offer peace to the Zephyrin Empire. We have conquered half the galaxy. We do not need peace from humans. We need to know if you are worth controlling or worth destroying." Jack had been trained for this moment. He did not let fear show on his face. "We are worth knowing," he said simply. "We are worth talking to." Ala's expression did not change, but she tilted her head slightly. "We will see. You will be given quarters. You will eat when we allow. You will speak when we allow. You will follow every law and custom of our court, or you will die. Do you understand?" "I understand," Jack said. Guards took him from the hall. As he walked, Jack heard the sound of laughter behind him again. He knew that every move he made in this palace would be tested. The Zephyrins would look for weakness. They would look for any reason to decide that humans were not worth the time to negotiate with. Jack's quarters were beautiful but cold. The walls were transparent on one side, showing the purple sky outside. The bed was hard and not built for human bodies. The temperature was set to what the Zephyrans preferred, which was colder than Jack liked. He did not complain. He sat by the window and looked out at the strange world. Hours later, a guard came and told Jack that he should walk in the gardens. Jack understood this was an order, not an invitation. He followed the guard down a series of corridors until they reached an open space filled with alien plants. Some grew upside down. Some seemed to move on their own. The air smelled like nothing Jack had ever experienced before. As he walked through the gardens, Jack heard a soft sound. It was small and quick, like something hiding. He turned and saw a young Zephyran child watching him from behind a large crystal plant. The child was small, maybe half the size of the adults Jack had seen. Its skin was lighter than Alla's, a pale blue with silver markings. Its eyes were the same dark color as the princess's. "Hello," Jack said softly. "What is your name?" The child did not answer at first. It looked left and right, as if checking to make sure no one was watching. Then it stepped out from behind the plant. "I am Lyric," the child said. Its voice was high and uncertain. "Are you the human from the small world?" "I am," Jack said. "I am Jack." "You are not what I expected," Lyric said. "The teacher said humans were primitive and dangerous. But you do not look dangerous." "Sometimes the most dangerous things are the most quiet," Jack said. "But I am not here to be dangerous. I am here to talk." Lyric stepped closer. "Will you stay long?" Before Jack could answer, a tall Zephyran guard appeared and took Lyric's arm. "The young princess must return to her studies," the guard said coldly. "You will not speak to her again." The guard took Lyric away quickly. The child looked back at Jack once before disappearing around a corner. Jack stood alone in the strange garden, knowing that he had just made a connection that could change everything about this mission. But he also knew that it could make things far more dangerous. He returned to his quarters and waited for the real tests to begin. The next morning, Jack was called to the negotiation chamber. It was a large room with walls of the same glowing crystal as the rest of the palace. The Zephyran Council sat on elevated platforms. Looking down at Jack, he stood alone on a lower platform, with nothing around him but open space. The lead negotiator was a Zephyran named Vorn. He was massive, with scars across his face that showed he had seen many battles. He looked at Jack without any expression. "You will tell us why we should not simply take what we want from Earth," Vorn said. It was not a question, because taking without agreement creates enemies, Jack said calmly. "Trade creates friends." "We do not need friends," Vorn replied. "We need resources and obedience. Then, you will always need more soldiers to force that obedience," Jack said. "Friendship requires only respect." Vorn leaned forward. "You speak as if humans have something we need. You do not. Your world is young. Your technology is weak. Your people are soft. Why should we not simply conquer you and be done with it?" Jack did not look away. "Because in the time it takes you to conquer Earth, your enemies will grow stronger. Because resources taken by force cost more to keep than resources traded fairly. Because allies who come to you willingly fight harder than slaves forced to fight." The council did not speak for a long time. Then Vorn smiled, but it was not a happy smile. "You have spirit, human. We will see how long that lasts when we demand more than you can give." The negotiations continued through the day. The Zephyrans demanded that Earth give them rare metals, technology designs, and 50,000 human workers. They demanded that Earth accept Zephyran leadership in all military matters. They demanded that humans change their laws to follow Zephyran rules. With each demand, the council waited to see if Jack would break. Jack did not break. He listened carefully. He asked questions. He explained what Earth could offer and what it could not. When the council tried to provoke him, he remained calm. When they insulted humanity, he did not respond with anger. He simply stated facts and waited for the next demand out. By evening, Jack was tired. His feet hurt from standing. His throat was dry. But he had held the line on every major point. The Zephyrins had not gotten what they wanted, and they did not like it. That night, as Jack walked back to his quarters through the palace gardens, he saw Lyric again. This time, the child was sitting alone by a pool of water that reflected the purple sky. Lyric looked up as Jack approached. "Did they hurt you?" Lyric asked. Jack was surprised by the question. "No, they just ask questions. Vorn hurts everyone who disagrees with him," Lyric said. "But you did not seem hurt." Jack sat down carefully beside the child. "Where I come from, we believe that disagreeing with someone does not mean we must hurt them." "That is a strange belief," Lyric said, but the child did not sound like it thought the belief was wrong. It sounded like Lyric thought it was interesting. "What are you called when no one is watching?" Jack asked. Lyric was quiet for a moment. "I am called Lyric. That does not change." "No," Jack agreed. "I meant, what do you like to do? What makes you happy?" Lyric's dark eyes became sad. "I do not know. I am taught to follow rules. I am taught to be strong. I am taught that showing what you feel is showing weakness." "That is not true," Jack said simply. "Showing what you feel takes the greatest strength of all." Lyric looked at Jack for a long time. "Tell me about your world. Tell me about Earth." Jack began to speak. He told Lyric about oceans and forests. He told about rain and snow. He told about families that ate together and talked and laughed. He told about children who could play and run without guards watching. He told about people who helped each other because they wanted to, not because they had to. Lyric listened without speaking, hanging on every word. The child's eyes grew wider with each story. When Jack finished, Lyric asked a single question. "Do people on Earth feel safe?" Jack thought about that carefully. "Yes, most of the time, people on Earth feel safe." "I do not feel safe," Lyric said quietly. Before Jack could respond, the same guard from the day before appeared and took Lyric away. But this time, the child did not resist. Lyric looked back at Jack with something in those dark eyes that looked like hope. The next 3 days followed a pattern. Jack would negotiate with the council in the morning and afternoon. He would be tested and pushed and insulted. And each evening, he would meet Lyric in the gardens. The child would ask questions, and Jack would answer them honestly. He told Lyric about music and art and games. He told about love between parents and children, about loyalty and trust. With each story, Jack could see the change in Lyric. The child began to ask more questions. The child began to seem less like a small version of the hard Zephyrins and more like a person trying to understand the world. On the third night, as Jack sat with Lyric by the pool, the child asked the question that changed everything. "Will you stay on the Zephyrin homeworld?" Lyric asked. "Or will you leave and never come back?" Jack looked at the child and understood that Lyric was asking about more than just a visit. The child was asking if there was anyone in the palace who would stay, who would not abandon them to the coldness and the rules. "If I stay, I will stay," Jack said. "If I leave, I will come back. I will not break my word to you." Lyric reached out and took Jack's hand. The child's hand was small and cold, but it held on with strength. For the first time since arriving on this world, Jack understood that his mission was about more than politics or trade. It was about showing a lonely child that there was another way to live. But he also knew that Princess Aella was watching. He had seen her more than once, standing in the shadows of the palace corridors, observing him with those dark eyes that saw everything, and he could not read what she was thinking. The formal ceremony was called for the evening of the fourth day. Jack was told to dress in his finest clothes and be prepared for the final judgment from the Zephyrin court. He understood what this meant. The negotiations had not gone the way the council wanted. They were going to make a decision about Earth, and Jack suspected it would not be a decision in humanity's favor. He walked through the palace corridors toward the Great Hall. Guards lined every wall. The palace itself seemed to have changed since he arrived. It felt colder, more hostile. He could feel the weight of their judgment pressing down on him. The Great Hall was filled with every important Zephyrin in the Empire. Thousands of them sat in rows, all watching the central platform where Jack would stand. Princess Aella was there with the council members. Lyric was seated beside her mother, wearing formal robes of silver and blue. Jack climbed onto the central platform. The lights in the hall dimmed. All attention focused on him. He stood alone, surrounded by aliens who saw him as less than they were. Vorn stood up. His voice echoed through the entire hall. Jack Morrison of Earth, the Zephyrin Empire has considered your words and your world. We have made our judgment. You will tell your people that they must accept Zephyrin rule. You will tell them that they must send workers and resources. You will tell them that they must obey every law we create. If you refuse, we will send a fleet to Earth, and we will take what we want by force. You have until the end of this ceremony to agree. Jack looked out at thousands of faces. He could see the cruelty in their eyes. This was not negotiation. This was an attempt to break him. I cannot agree to that, Jack said clearly. Earth will not accept rule from the Zephyrin Empire. We will trade with you as equals. We will work with you as partners. But we will not surrender our freedom. The hall filled with angry sounds. The council stood up. Vorn's face twisted with rage. You dare refuse the Zephyrin Empire? Vorn roared. You dare speak as if your small world has any power to refuse us. I will show you what happens to those who refuse us. Vorn descended from his platform. He was massive, easily 3 times the size of Jack. The crowd watched as he walked toward Jack, clearly intending to demonstrate Zephyrin power by crushing the human before them. Jack did not run. He did not try to fight. He stood still and waited. Vorn raised one of his 4 arms, ready to strike. And in that moment, something extraordinary happened. Lyric broke from the platform where the princess sat. The small child ran down the steps, moving faster than anyone would have expected. Guards reached for the princess's child, but Lyric was too quick. The child ran straight across the open floor of the Great Hall. In front of thousands of Zephyrins who had never seen such a thing happen, Lyric ran directly to Jack and grabbed him around the waist, hiding behind his body. Lyric's small arms held tight, trembling slightly. The child looked up at Jack with those dark eyes, and in that moment, Jack understood completely. Lyric was choosing. The child was choosing to trust Jack more than to trust the power and authority of the Zephyrin court. The hall became absolutely silent. Not a sound. Not a whisper. Not a breath. Thousands of Zephyrins stared at what was happening, unable to process what they were seeing. Vorn stood frozen, his arms still raised to strike, but he could not move. He could not hit Jack now, not with the princess's child clinging to the human side. The child's action had violated everything the Zephyrin court believed in. It had broken the structure of their entire society. Jack placed one hand on Lyric's head and looked out at the assembly with complete calm. He did not try to defend himself. He did not try to explain. He simply stood there, protecting a child who had chosen to trust him. Princess Eleor rose slowly from her seat. Every eye turned to her, wondering what she would do. The princess descended from her platform, and for a moment, Jack thought she might come to take Lyric away, but she did not. Ella walked to where Jack and Lyric stood. She looked at her child, then at Jack, then out at the thousands of nobles watching. When she spoke, her voice was quiet, but it filled the entire hall. "My child has chosen," Ella said. "In all the years of teaching strength and power, I believed I was creating a worthy member of the Zephyran Empire. But my child has shown me something I did not see. My child has shown me that there is a strength I do not possess." She turned to face Vorn directly. "You can't strike this human now. Not because he is strong, but because my child has judged him to be trustworthy. And my child, who's raised in power and surrounded by those who would use force to get what they want, has chosen to trust him instead." Ella looked at Jack. "This human has spent days with my child, and he has not manipulated. He has not used the child for advantage. He has simply been kind. He has simply treated my child as a person worthy of respect. That is a strength I have never seen before in this court." The silence in the hall continued. Thousands of Zephyrans tried to understand what they were hearing. Lyric remained holding tight to Jack, and Jack did not move. Alela spoke again, her voice harder now. "The human from Earth is right. There are many kinds of strength, and the strength to be trustworthy and protective is worth more than the strength to force obedience. If the Zephyran Empire cannot see that, then we deserve to be challenged by those who can." She looked at Vorn with complete coldness. "You will leave this court. Your time as a negotiator for the Empire is ended." Vorn's face went dark with anger, but he did not argue. He could not argue. The princess had spoken, and the princess was more powerful than he was. He left the hall, and the guards followed him out. The ceremony was not finished, but the judgment had been made. Jack was still holding Lyric as the child looked up at him without fear for the first time since they had met. The great hall remained silent for a long time after Ella dismissed Vorn. Jack still stood with Lyric pressed against him, his hand steady on the child's head. No one moved. It was as if the entire assembly was waiting to see what would happen next. Then Ella spoke again, and this time her voice carried to every corner of the massive hall. "I will tell you the truth that my child has revealed," she said. 4 days ago, when this human arrived, I made a decision. I decided to watch him carefully, not through guards and surveillance, but through the eyes of someone pure. I asked my child to observe him. I asked Lyric to judge him in a way that I could not. The council members looked at each other, clearly confused by what the princess was saying. "A child knows innocence or deception in a way that adults do not," Ella continued. "A child can sense whether someone will hurt them. A child knows if a person is trustworthy. I wanted to know if this human was pretending to be peaceful, or if peace was truly in his nature." She gestured toward Jack and Lyric. "My child has given me the answer. Lyric has shown that this human deserves trust. Lyric has shown that Jack Morrison is someone worthy of protection, not conquest." Ella walked closer to Jack and Lyric. She reached out and placed her hand gently on her child's shoulder. Lyric looked up at her, still holding to Jack's side. "You have shown me something I did not know I had lost," Ella said to Jack. "In the pursuit of power, my people have forgotten what it means to be trusted. We have forgotten that the strongest bonds are not made through force, but through genuine respect." She turned to address the entire assembly. "The Zephyran Empire has spent many years conquering, taking, demanding obedience. We have believed this made us strong, but I see now that it has made us lonely. It has made us afraid, because those who serve us through fear will one day turn against us. Those who obey through force will one day find strength to resist." The council members began to speak, their voices rising in argument. They were not accepting this change. Jack could see the resistance in their faces, the anger at what Aella was saying, but Aella raised her hand, and the voices stopped. I am the princess of the Zephyrin Empire. My word carries weight in these halls. And I am telling you that the way we have ruled is failing. The fact that this human could stand alone against our strongest negotiator and win through words instead of weapons should tell you something. She looked at one of the older council members, a Zephyrin named Kalish, who had been watching carefully without speaking. Kalish, you have ruled for many years, Aella said. Have the species we conquered ever truly become our allies? Kalish was silent for a long time. Then he spoke. No, they obey, but they plan rebellion. They give us resources, but they withhold their best efforts. They follow our laws, but they dream of breaking free. Exactly, Aella said. We have strength without loyalty. We have power without peace. And that is a weakness that will eventually destroy us. Jack listened carefully. He understood that Aella was not just making a speech. She was making a political move. She was using her child's trust in him to change the foundation of Zephyrin society. It was brilliant and dangerous. There is much work to be done, Aella said, looking at the assembly. There are negotiations to be held. There are agreements to be made. And there are old ways that must be abandoned. She looked directly at Jack. You came to speak of partnership. You spoke of trade instead of conquest. At the time, I thought you were weak. I see now that you were showing strength I did not recognize. Jack remained still, waiting to see what would come next. The Zephyrin Empire will offer Earth the following, Aella announced. We will trade fairly. We will respect your independence. We will work together as equals, not as masters and servants. And in return, we ask only for honest dealing and the knowledge that comes from your people. The hall erupted in arguments. Many nobles stood up, objecting to what the princess was saying. They had built their power on conquest and dominance. The idea of treating others as equals was foreign to them. But Aella did not back down. Those who cannot accept this will find themselves without power in the new Zephyrin Empire, she said coldly. The old ways are ending. Those who wish to continue them will end with the old ways. The message was clear. The princess was consolidating her power. She was using the lesson from her child to remake the structure of Zephyrin rule. Over the next few hours, as the formal ceremony continued, the Zephyrin court slowly accepted what was happening. Some nobles left the hall in protest. Others stayed and gradually began to understand what Aella was explaining. The Zephyrin way would change, not because they had become weaker, but because they had learned a stronger way. Jack stood with Lyric through the entire process. The child did not leave his side, and Jack did not release the child. Around them, an empire was shifting its foundation. When it was finally over, Aella came to Jack personally. She knelt down and looked at her child. Thank you, Lyric, she said quietly. You have taught me what I should have known all along. Then she looked at Jack. And thank you, Jack Morrison of Earth. You have shown my child, and through my child, shown my people, that there is another way. Jack bowed respectfully. Thank you for being willing to see it, Your Highness. Aella smiled, and for the first time, the smile reached her eyes. It was not the cold, cutting smile from when Jack first arrived. It was genuine warmth. The negotiations for Earth will continue, she said. But they will be negotiations between equals. We have much to learn from your people. As the night wore on, Jack realized that he had not just negotiated a treaty. He had helped begin a transformation. And it had started with one moment when a child chose trust over authority, and when one human simply accepted that choice without trying to use it for advantage. The next morning, Jack was not woken by guards or by formal summons. Instead, Lyric came to his quarters, walking openly without attendants for the first time. The guards at the palace doors had not stopped the child. Things were already changing. "Come with me," Lyric said, taking Jack's hand. "My mother wants to speak with you." Jack followed the child through the palace corridors. The atmosphere was different now. Some of the guards still watched him carefully, but others nodded in acknowledgement. Word had spread through the palace about what Lyric had done, about what it meant, about the judgment the princess had made. Ella was waiting in a private chamber, not the grand hall or the council room. It was a simple space with furniture designed for actual comfort rather than showing power. The princess was sitting by a window that looked out over the Zephyran landscape. She turned as Jack entered. "Thank you for coming," Ella said. "I wanted to speak with you away from the formal spaces." Jack bowed slightly. "Of course, Your Highness." Ella gestured to a seat. "Please, sit. And you may call me Ella here. There are no ceremonies in this room." Jack sat carefully. Lyric climbed into the seat next to him, the child's presence a constant comfort. "I owe you an explanation," Ella said. She looked out the window for a moment before continuing. "I have been the princess of this empire for many years. I have been trained since birth to be strong, to value power, to believe that control comes through force. But I have also watched my people become increasingly isolated. Even within our own society, there is no real trust. Everyone is afraid of everyone else." Jack listened without interrupting. "When you arrived," Ella continued, "I decided to test you in a way that the council could not. I brought Lyric to observe you because children are honest in their judgments. They cannot hide from their own feelings. If you had been deceptive, if you had tried to manipulate my child for your own purposes, Lyric would have known it." "And if I had treated your child badly?" Jack asked. "Then I would have ended the negotiations and your life," Ella said matter-of-factly. "A threat to my child is a threat to everything I care about. The council thought I was reckless, allowing a child near the human. But I was not reckless. I was being a mother." Lyric squeezed Jack's hand, understanding that Ella was explaining something important. "Lyric has learned things from you in 4 days that our schools would never teach," Ella said. "Lyric has learned that safety can come from trust instead of power. That kindness is not weakness. That different species can care about each other. These things are not taught in the Zephyran Empire because we do not believe they are true. But you have shown my child that they are." "I only shared stories," Jack said. "And I treated Lyric with respect." "Exactly," Ella said. "And that was enough to change my child's understanding of the world. That is the power I see in humanity. Not the power to destroy or conquer, but the power to change how people think about themselves and others." She stood and walked to the window. "I am going to make changes to the Zephyran court. Some will resist. Some may even try to remove me from power. But I believe these changes are necessary if our empire is to survive and grow." "What kinds of changes?" Jack asked. "I am going to allow the species we have conquered to have more control over their own worlds," Ella said. "I am going to establish real trade agreements instead of taking what we want. I am going to teach our children that there are many forms of strength, not just physical power. And I am going to make Earth's alliance permanent as a partner, not as a possession." She turned back to face Jack. "But none of this would have happened if Lyric had not run to you in that moment. My child's choice revealed to the entire court what I had started to see. That genuine trust is more powerful than any weapon." Jack spoke carefully. "Your Highness, you are taking a great risk. The council does not support this direction." "I know," Ella said. "But change always requires risk. The question is whether the risk is worth the result." "I believe it is." Over the next week, Jack continued his negotiations with the new council. But they were different now. The Zephyrans argued less harshly. They listened to what Jack had to say. They began to ask real questions about human society, human values, human dreams. Lyric spent time with both Jack and Ayala, existing now in a space where rigid hierarchy was beginning to soften. The child was learning from both a human diplomat and a Zephyran princess how to think beyond the rigid structures of the old. Empire. Jack spent his final evening on his Zephyran homeworld in the gardens, where he had first met Lyric. The child came to say goodbye, and they sat by the pool of water one last time. "Will you come back?" Lyric asked. "I will," Jack promised. "And when you grow up, you will visit Earth. You will see the oceans and the forests. You will meet my people. And together, we will help make sure that the friendship between our species grows strong." "My mother says you are a bridge," Lyric said. "She says you helped us see that we could be different." "Your mother is wise," Jack said. "And you are brave. Never forget that." When Jack's shuttle lifted off from the Zephyran homeworld, he looked down at the crystal palace growing smaller below. He knew that what had started here would continue to grow. The image of a young princess's child running to hide behind a human, trusting him with everything, had changed something fundamental in the Zephyran Empire. On Earth, Jack reported that the mission was successful beyond anyone's expectations. He shared the story of how a simple act of kindness and respect had convinced an entire empire to change course. The tale spread quickly through human space. The story of Jack Morrison and the alien princess's child became legendary, a symbol of what was possible when beings from different worlds chose connection over conflict. In the years that followed, the Zephyran Empire transformed. Trade flourished. Other species that had been conquered began to gain independence and voluntary partnerships with the Zephyrons. And young Lyric grew, eventually becoming an ambassador between the Zephyrans and humans, dedicated to spreading the lesson that the strongest bonds are built on trust and respect, not on force. The crystal palace that had felt so cold and hostile when Jack first arrived eventually became known throughout the galaxy as a place where different species worked together as equals. And it had all begun with one moment of trust, one child's courage, and one human's simple kindness. Jack often thought back to that moment when Lyric's small form hid behind him while thousands of Zephyrans watched in shocked silence. In that instant, the future of two species had shifted. It was not through weapons or treaties or clever negotiations. It was through the simple human act of standing up for what is right and letting others see that they could trust you with their most precious thing. That child's faith, and Jack's worthiness of that faith, had saved worlds.